Greetings, YouTube. I'm wearing my Evolution of the Silly Walk t-shirt. Yesterday, the Gentleman Gamer did a video talking about the Planescape setting and a suggestion for a beginning adventure. It was a race. Now, I don't know diddly about the Planescape setting. I've read the setting, but I've never used it. It is fascinating, and if I were ever to use a multi-dimensional type of setting, Planescape would be the go-to version. But it made me think of an Adventure C that I had used many, many years ago. This is back in 2nd edition. And rather than a race, I involved the characters in a scavenger hunt. They were contracted by a mage to collect a list of ingredients that he needed to create a magic item. And time was of the essence. Now, at that point, it was a fairly straightforward contract. Nothing unusual. Somebody needs something, we've been hired to get it, go get it. I believe he provided some material support in the sense that he gave an advance. I think he also gave a couple of teleportation scrolls. I think they had to go to the Arctic to get the chemical from a Remoraz worm, which allows it to like heat itself up or something like that. I think that's what it was. But it was like 6 or 8 items. Now, unknown to the player characters, they had just been involved in a scavenger hunt. It seems a group of bored nobles decided they would have a scavenger hunt, but being nobles and incredibly wealthy and lazy, they weren't going to hunt for things themselves. So they set up some rules. Each noble would get a team of adventurers to go out and collect the items. They would turn the items over to their house mage or wizard or whatever you want to call it, and they would then turn that into a magic item. Whoever's house spellcaster created the first one, functional magic item, won. So in theory, you could try to make it. If you failed, another team might win if they succeeded, even though they weren't the first person to try making the item. So the characters went out and they had adventures. And again, tight schedule. And they never actually bumped into any of the other teams. At the time, I have no idea why I didn't do this. I should have, but I didn't. But if they had, the response from the person that hired them was simple. I have a competing mage for another house, and they are trying to make me look bad by failing to keep my noble master happy. It's not a lie. He would be in trouble if he failed to get the magic item made in time. Now, after all of these things, and I believe the player characters actually won the contest, after there was a suitable like a period of time for the magic item to be made, they were invited to a ball. Now, balls were pretty big in my campaign. In fact, one of the player characters, Tanner, he was the main, essentially the face of the party, was a fighter mage, I believe, half-elf. Set them up on a regular basis for their patron, who was a baroness. All the player characters were members of the members of the household of this patron baroness. And so Tanner would always be doing balls. Being invited to a ball was nothing out of the ordinary, though it was not all that common for nobles to invite essentially commoners. So they go to the ball, and they see there's a lot of commoners there, all the adventuring teams. And it is during the course of the evening that they discover that all these people are adventurers, they all did the same thing, and that they had been duped into this. Now, Tanner and the rest of the party felt incredibly betrayed, particularly Tanner. And when the nobles offered them their bonus payment, because they'd already been paid for the mission because they had won, Tanner flat out refused it. He just said, I want nothing to do with this. And they all left en masse, at least the player character group did. And this caused a certain level of enmity between the player characters and the nobles. Now, this played out shortly thereafter, where their patron baroness gave a message to Tanner, a letter, and said, I need you to deliver this to so-and-so lord. And Tanner found out that this lord was going to be at a horse race. So, instead of having to go to the lord's house, the noble's house, he went to this horse race where he could meet them in the public eye, hopefully where things would be less conflicted. So as Tanner is beginning to walk towards this noble's coach, the noble sees him and is panicked. He knows Tanner is not happy about what happened. He was one of the nobles involved in the scavenger hunt, and he's a coward. He orders his coachman to stop Tanner from getting near the coach. So the coachman stands up and draws a horse pistol, which is a large pistol. I was using firearm rules at the time with exploding dice. You roll maximum damage, you get to roll another die and add it to the first one. If you roll maximum damage, so on and so forth. So the coachman fires the pistol, strikes Tanner, rolls maximum damage, rolls again, does like 14 points of damage. I was also using knockback rules. Tanner makes a save, doesn't get knocked down. He keeps walking towards the coach. The noble is freaking out at this moment, like gibbering in fear. He's sure that Tanner's come there to murder him in broad daylight. So the coachman draws a second pistol, his last one, fires a second shot, hits Tanner, rolls damage, maximum damage, rolls again, doesn't do quite as well. I think he did 12 points of damage the second time around. Now, rolls a saving throw against knockback, makes the second one. So he keeps walking forward. At this point, the coachman's hiding. The noble is trying to crawl under the seat inside the coach. Tanner walks up, opens the door, takes out the letter, which I now believe is covered in blood, hands it to him and says, "A letter from my Baroness." Nods the lady inside the coach, which was the noble's much younger and very attractive wife, and turns around and walks away. The noble looked like a fool. The coachman looked like a fool. The wife, however, was very impressed by Tanner, and I believe at a later date had a dalliance with him. For her, it was kind of slumming. For Tanner, it was kind of sweet revenge. But that's the kind of thing that went on in this campaign. It was a lot of fun. But the idea of doing the scavenger hunt is useful because you can use it at any level. You can do it in low level where the kind of things provided for the player characters will be a small amount of money and horses, or just a map. You can do it at really high level, and and people are going to start wondering, what magic are they making? Are they going to figure out what it is? Are they going to figure out what possible use these people would have for this? So this can be used at different tiers without any difficulty, just as the race that the gentleman described could be easily used at different tiers without a problem. Both of these are excellent, flexible adventure ideas. And that particular campaign, it was second edition, it was Companions of the Crystal Star, I believe the player characters eventually became known as. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that campaign. It was good. So what are adventure ideas that you've used in the past that are flexible and that can function at different tiers?